Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I will say, I don't have to introduce myself, did a really wonderful job. But I will say before I go into it, I do have a few slides to kind of frame the presentation. Then I have one slide that basically is kind of going to be a speaking kind of activity for you, a discussion activity rather. So I was going to give handouts, but I'm like, then nobody ever uses them and they just throw them away, wasted paper. So you guys will be talking a little bit and I'll probably be wandering around if I can, based on the camera, just to overhear some conversations. And then we'll come back and kind of share with each other things that came up, because basically I can give you the frame about transferring skills, but for you to kind of think about yourself, what other skills do I have and how can I apply them to ELT, you got to somehow at least be able to kind of get your hands wet, right? Not just listen. So I wouldn't say it's a workshop, but it's not a full lecture. There we go. Okay, so basically with that introduction, we kind of will start with the concept. I wrote literature. It's really just sources that I used from KOTESOL Press to kind of create the presentation. And then some application for you guys. And then resources, again, I'll refer you back to the information that, the books that I used. And then kind of just wrap up in discussion. It'll all kind of really be a flow. It's not really like a research paper, so it's not so rigid. But just so you have an idea where we're going. So I wanted to start where everything sort of started for me, what made me start thinking about this. In 2013, KOTESOL Press put out a book about basically drawing on skills, utilizing skills from other fields. And it was a book basically with the, basically in the humanities, so art, science, arts, drama. And I had seen it and I thought it was a really cool book, but I just never picked it up because, I don't know, I was picking up other books. And then in 2015, the same author, Christopher Stillwell, put out a second edition, but this book focused on the sciences, so things that were outside the humanities. And each book is basically a chapter of just an individual sort of narrating how some skill from another field or hobby informs their English language teaching. So they're really easy reads and they're nice. And that kind of made me buy both books. And when I was looking and reading them, I realized that my colleague and I, we had been, which is up there, we had been mainly in a center, it's like a centric faculty development for in-service and pre-service training across the DLI Institute. Due to some restructuring and other factors, some faculty development resources for pre-service and in-service training were put directly in the different schools. You can think of them as different departments across a university. Our schools are the different languages, you know, Arabic school 1, 2, 3, Korean school, So you could think about a university that faculty training was put in the engineering department, the mathematics department, the English department for in-service and pre-service training. And in that way, we started to work with the teachers kind of more on an ongoing basis rather than seeing them for a period like a CELTA and moving them on. There was became more of a mentoringship. So we started using naturally and sharing, we didn't realize we were doing it, sharing how we use things in our teaching based on our experiences outside of English language teaching, and we would encourage our teachers. So for example, my colleague, although he's my colleague in education, he's a triathlete, and he frames everything a lot through training, endurance, resiliency, all the things that you need in terms of, basically developing yourself as an athlete. And he would give those examples as analogies to the teachers. And I would use things from my field in hotel restaurant management and culinary arts. And then we would invite the teachers, because some of them are educators originally, but most of them come from other fields. They might come from agricultural science. They might come from dentistry or veterinary. So we would start saying, okay, what skills do you have that you can think about, informing your teaching or your curriculum design or whatever? And it was just natural for us because of the way we kind of think about things. And reading these books, when I finally got them in 2015, I realized this is really cool. Look what we're doing. So we started utilizing the books and these things in a little more formal way. So that's how we got to, or how I transitioned to kind of the topic. So the two books are Language Teaching Insights from Other Fields. The first one you can see is kind of the last one, the 2015, is more in the science-based fields. And the second one there, Language Teaching Insights from Other Fields, is more about sports and the humanities. So those are the books, and they're really easy reads, and they're kind of cool. So basically, starting off, I was sort of thinking, okay, so how to start? I said, let's start really kind of in a practical way. So what is it that I have? So as a teacher, you're thinking, okay, what is it that I have? And then how can I retool it for English language teaching? So I kind of conceptualized it like this, that I have a wheel, so I have all these functional parts, and they're the different aspects, right, the spokes of the wheel. And then I can retool them, right? I can get my side hustle as a hamster and singing, so I can, take those tools and use them that way. And then this way we have packages. So I was thinking of whatever, wrapping packages or a florist. So starting with where we are, so if this is our English language teaching skills, what is it that we have that maybe could help us market ourselves as, I don't know, a weekend DJ, or what is it that we have as English language teachers that could help us in whatever, floral design, decorating, whatever, interior design, whatever. So instead of starting with your outside skills and how they inform ELT, I wanted to start with ELT and going backwards, just as a model. I'm not going to ask you to do that. I'm going to ask you to do the outside informing ELT, but just so that there's a model. And I wanted it to be general enough that we all could relate to the process, so that when you do the hands-on conceptualization in pairs or groups, it'll make sense to you. So how do we retool our skills? So I'm starting, yes, as an ESL instructor or an EFL instructor. I wrote ESL because I'm in the US, it automatically came out, sorry. What are the things that I do? Okay, I do lesson planning. Of course, I have to assess. It might be summative, it might be formative. You can think about it as you want. I have to develop materials. I have to counsel and advise students. And I do a lot of teacher-led professional development, PD being professional development. And then I also have to incorporate a lot of technology, learning management systems, Google Suites, applications. So these are just some of the skills I have, or some of the tasks I do. So then on the other side, I have to look at, well, what competencies do these tasks demonstrate? What is it that I actually have? So I won't go through all of them. You can glance and read. But the idea of lesson planning. Well, you think lesson planning, you do it all the time. You don't think anything about it. But I'm actually devising measurable learning outcomes. I have to map within a curriculum. And I have to develop clear communicative policies, right, for my lesson planning and where it fits in. Assessment, you think, okay, I just correct it. Is it right or wrong? Well, no. It's demonstrating a competency to determine validity or reliability when I create a test. Create variety, because I have to have a different forms of assessment. I have to provide an effective delivery method. So is it appropriate to do it online? Is it appropriate to do it on paper? These are simple things, but they're demonstrating competencies. I have to create rubrics, right, so that everything's systematic. And you get the idea. So the idea here is that, yes, you do a lot of things, but then what you have to do is kind of step back and think about competencies and processes, which is the next slide. So when I'm going to, in a few moments, give you an opportunity to think about your outside field and things that you could use to develop English language teaching, either for now, exactly what you do right now, or are you here and what job do you want to get to, but you're not there? So maybe I'm an English language teacher. I want to go into materials development. I want to work for a publisher. I don't have any publisher experience. Oh, how am I going to get that job? Forget it, I'm stuck. No. Let's think about what is it that you may have done outside that will demonstrate competencies so that when you apply for that materials development with the publisher, you're not only just an English teacher, you're demonstrating competencies from another field. And I'll give you an example in just a moment. But what I want you to do is think about, when I give you your opportunity to consider the task, think about competencies, and here's another sort of kind of way to think about it. What does it take to manage an instructional project? So I gave you the side-by-side, but if that doesn't work for you, this is just another example. So you all manage instructional projects, right? So you know that there's something here, there's something here, there's something here, there's something here. I kind of put them over there and then said, hey, these are not only things that you do, but these are things that employers want. So when you manage an instructional project, you're problem solving. So at the top, ability to work in a team, communication skills, leadership. And I started writing those down, and then I was like, wait a minute, let me kind of Google. This is what, corporate America wants. And not only corporate America, right? Kind of our transnational kind of competencies as nations. So the skills that you have, which you do every day in English language teaching, might also be enhanced from outside fields. So I'll give an example, and then I'm going to give you guys a task to do it yourself. So basic competencies. So I started my, out of high school, I went to culinary arts school, and then completed with hotel restaurant management, and I worked in that for 10 years and went back to school for a BA in linguistics. But there was a point where I needed to change jobs. So I was going to school, BA, and still working my pastry chef job. But there was a period of time where there was an incident, an accident, and I was unable to, physically work. I needed a desk job. I applied for a customer service position in basically a hunting company, like hunting clothing company type thing. I went in for the interview. They asked me all these questions. And the question would always, some of them were basic, but sometimes they would ask me, well, what do you know about customer service? And I would say something, and they would say, well, how does that apply to, being a call rep in a call center? Again and again, and I was a young, somewhere in my mid-20s, and even I was smart enough to say, one example was, what customer service have you given if you work back in the kitchen? You don't interact with the customers, and your job is customer service over the phone. I said, of course. I'm a pastry chef. I meet with people who are going to have a wedding. I listen to their needs. I design a cake based on their needs, and I create their dream. That's customer service. And I can remember all the time the manager with the gray hair would be like, oh, this little girl knows what she's talking about. Because I understood competencies that I have from everything else apply to a different competence. So now, with that example, you guys have this little frame. If it doesn't work for you, you can think of it a different way. So tasks I do as an, now you might be doing these now because you might have many jobs besides ELT, or you could put it in the past. Tasks I did, if it's a prior field. But I put it do because I didn't want to lend it only to professional tasks. I wanted it to be something that is a skill you have. You might be doing Taekwondo, like it's not past, right? My colleague is a triathlete, and that it's something he does. It's not ELT, but it informs ELT. So I kept it in the present so that you could think about other things that you might do. You might manage 5 kids at home, whatever it may be. But if the past works for you, change it in your mind to did. So just list some tasks. You don't even have to fill it all out. If you get going on 2 and that's enough meat for you, that's fine. And then start to think about and list the competencies that they demonstrate. So when you think about competencies, think about processes. That's the easiest way. I mean, if it works for you another way, that's fine, but I kind of think about it in processes. So it's about 5:46. If you're sitting next to someone, you could spin around, you could kind of dialogue with each other, and that's why I'm saying you don't need to fill out all of these if you only each talk about one task and the competencies, however, you know, the dynamics of the conversation work, so that you're not just doing it in your own head, because somebody might say, oh yeah, that's cool, it demonstrates this competency as well, right? Because we always learn from each other. So you can be little, what I like to call triumvirates. So you can be tripods, or just spin around. And then once you guys get chit-chatting, I'll just wander around and listen. So it's 5:47. Let's give you to like maybe 6. We can come back together, and then I just want to kind of unpack and dialogue about things that emerged in terms of competencies, and was it kind of surprising for you, or you didn't think about it that way, or just whatever kind of emerged from the conversations, to send you away with some takeaway thoughts. Make sense? Perfect. Start chatting. You're all teachers, you know you're supposed to talk. Yeah, so I think it's both. First, it's analysis, because you have to analyze it, and
you have to analyze the process.
What's wrong, and then being able to streamline the process.
Or creativity, or
Yeah.
creative in problem solving.
And probably, well, especially, yeah.
I need some time to think about it.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, reflect, give her some, and then maybe one of you can go, and then her juices start flowing.
Okay, well, I spend a lot of my time lesson planning. So in terms of competencies, a lot of that is collaborative. I try to make it collaborative with other people in my office, so that's a competency, I suppose.
And do you have any, I gave you an example from ELT to start us there, but maybe skills and experience that you have outside of
I
ELT?
only ever worked in ELT.
Okay, but you have a hobby, I bet.
Yeah, okay. I like running.
There you go. So just like my colleagues, what skills, what tasks do you do as a runner? And then what competencies do those kind of demonstrate? And then maybe how can that maybe inform your English language teaching, or maybe inform the next position in English language teaching you want? Do you get the idea? Yeah.
The thing I focused on a lot is self-discipline in terms of going running when I say that I will go running, and running the distance that I set myself. And yeah, I think it shows commitment. I think that it shows that if a task is difficult, that setting my mind to it means I can carry it through to fruition. Yeah, exactly. So I think it shows strength of will as well. So those are
So something that just kind of, not imposing it on you, but everything you say I would agree with exactly. And I just got off of a panel session about research for MA and PhD dissertations. It was a Q&A kind of panel for that topic. And basically all those skills, if you were thinking of doing a PhD, these are competencies that you know that you can tell yourself that you have, that you would maybe be adequate to manage a full-time job and the PhD, right? So kind of these things, whatever your next kind of steps, because I think the example of I'm a teacher but I want to be a materials developer, well, I know how do I get the experience? Well, maybe you do have the experience, you just don't see it that way. Yeah.
Maybe they are learning before they come to the class. So I use the elements.
And maybe, I'm not sure, so you've moved up, so the position you're in, it might not be your favorite, but you're at least going to stay there for a while because that's what you were working towards. Is there the things that you liked and all these competencies that you have in terms of planning, scheduling, maybe even budgeting, right, when you're doing all these event planning, and then even coordinating and a team, right? Because you don't do it all. You have to orchestrate. It's people skills, right, and communication. Are any of those skills, could they in some form could they inform or enhance your current aspects of your current job? Not the reading one, because the reading is just solitary, right? You don't have to answer it now. I'm just sort of food for thought for you to think about that. Yeah, there's always something, but this is the idea, is that you just have to get the juices juices flowing, excuse me, because you might think, I'm not suitable for a publisher, but maybe you are, because maybe you have all these great organizational skills. You can go from one place to another to a market or whatever. In the interest of time, I'll pull us back together just so that we can have some time to kind of share either things that emerged. And don't expect that you're going to have answers for yourself. The idea here was not for you to kind of finish your list and then know where you're going, but just an idea to kind of give you a new, frame or paradigm through which to kind of look at all the skills that you have for your current position or where you want to go. So just little slide batches. So just anybody, random volunteer, of maybe something that emerged in a discussion, something that was interesting, something that you didn't think about before, or, yeah.
Just a comment that it's just astounding to me, just as we were talking here, I just astounded at what I've forgotten, that skills that I had from back as a kid that could be used.
Oh yeah, there's so many. I mean, when we're kids, our parents send us to violin class, they send us to dance class, whatever, and all these things, we don't think about them, but there's certain things about sports and the integrity and the commitment that it develops in a child, and you bring those with you, or, it's amazing. And I find that when I start dialoguing with my teachers, they think, oh, I have, a PhD in physics, or I have a master's in agricultural science. I thought it was nothing to get me to my next job. I thought I was going to have to teach and be a classroom teacher all this time forever till I, can pay off my kids' college. But they start to see and understand and be able to be competitive to move into different support positions within the institute. Not that they didn't like teaching, but it runs a course, right? They want to grow and professionalize themselves. Not that, platform teachers, those are the ones we need. Without platform teachers, our field doesn't exist. So it's not that it's a bad job at all. Yeah. Any other comments or thoughts? Good? Yeah?
No, okay, sure. When I came up, I had forgotten about how this affected me, and through talk, you kept pushing me, saying, you must have something, and I realized, because I've been a teacher since graduating from college.
And that came up there. He was like, but I've always been an ELT. And I said, but you have other hobbies, you have other things you do, right? Yeah, so continue.
For me, all my work in college was as a waiter, and I saw a couple times after that, and realized that, there's a lot of skill transfer between waiting tables and teaching students.
And that book by Christopher Stilwell, he talks about being a bartender and a waiter and how much there is skill transfer. Mm-hmm. Do you want to give one example?
Sure, yeah. In addition to being able to juggle a lot of things at one time in your head and kind of having kind of a diffused attention over a group or a group of students.
Perfect. That's what teachers do every day. We got so many things in our head, and we might be here, but our diffused attention still has everybody in our.
Not letting that show.
Yeah.
And you're internally completely frazzled and trying to keep track of a million things and forgetting half of them. But
exactly.
Appearing like you're calm and in control the whole time is a skill that's, if you're going to be a waiter for any length of time, is necessary.
And even we could call it, the table side manner, right? That you know how to appeal to the individual at the other end of your conversation, which is the same thing you do with students, right? You're meeting each customer at a different level, in terms of what they need, the style that they expect, the discourse they expect. You change from table to table, and the same thing with our students. So much skill transfer. Yeah.
I did something very similar as a student, a master's student in France, where we studied making our CVs or resumes using the European style, which is very much competency-based. So we always had to think about our experiences and what competencies we have. But right now, what I found interesting with this experience is even just thinking about one job, what we do as teachers, we can kind of recognize the complexity of the job more. Maybe we knew that, but maybe we forgot about it. And if we're
That's also another value, yeah.
Yeah, and if we're feeling tired, we might be able to think, okay, why am I feeling tired at this job that I do well or that I've done for so long? And you can analyze and maybe say, well, these are the competencies that I'm using that maybe I don't like, to spend all my time working on, or these are the ones I'm not able to.
But those are the ones I want to use.
And maybe we can use this as a tool to also rebalance ourselves in our field.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a new application that just came
Yeah.
in.
No.
There's those principles like the buttered toast will always land buttered
Yeah.
down and all of that. What was the Peter principle? Someone's promoted to one level above their competence.
Yeah.
It kind of fits in with this too.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So,
Yeah. Those sayings come from somewhere, right?
maybe getting, going a level higher than your preference.
Yes, the same thing, because then you're using skills that maybe you weren't, like you said, you wouldn't be so keen on doing scheduling because that's just not something that you would enjoy. But other aspects of a leadership role would be competencies that would be enjoyable for you to use. Anything from over here? You guys, I listened to you guys for a little bit, and you were talking about learning management skills, and I guess you were specifically talking about like your tech skills or utilizing multimedia as a skill within your classroom, or?
Yes. Nowadays, I'm quite interested in the flipped learning teaching method because I'm teaching at the university of the low-level students usually, so they're not that interested in participating in the class. I mean, the English conversation class. So because I asked them and I conducted the survey why you guys are not interested in the conversation class. So they said that grammar and vocabulary they're not have many knowledge. So for that I recorded short video clips and using LMS or Naver Band I uploaded the short video about the grammar and vocabulary related to the conversation, English conversation. So before they attending the class, they should
They should.
They should because I gave them.
It's better than reading. So when I was listening to that, I was listening to she was talking about all the competencies in terms of technology and being able to incorporate technology and just basically focus on vocabulary. So your technology-based competencies just come from you being an individual of this era, or you have an interest in technology, or?
I'm not that I'm not that good at technology, but I attended some conferences to teach about the technology. So I learned a lot. So I adopted this technology and applied to my class, and it works.
Okay.
I got my data from this teaching method, and then I'm working on my thesis about this.
Excellent. Yeah, so basically your outside competency actually came through your professional development, which, and you're applying it in the classroom. So we have about 4 minutes or so. Wrap up in discussion, but I'm going to show you, just in case you want to take a picture, or the 2 resources. There's other similar books out there that I did come across after I fell in love with these. I came into some other resources, but I really like these 2 resources. They're thin. It's the first one, the latest one is the yellow one, and the cover's yellow, the other one blue, and they come in the same format. They're really short chapters. They have little, like, kind of pull-out sections with little highlight, like, pay attention to this, like the English connection, right? You have your article, and someone's narrating their view of their past and how it informs English language teaching. And they have little, I guess, call them caveats or something. They're really simple and easy to read. And it doesn't have to be read in a linear fashion, which is also nice. You can pick and choose the way you want. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So with that, I thank you very much. And I thank you for attending and the participation. And hopefully I'll see some, or hopefully all of you, at the Wine and Cheese Social to wrap down the first day of the 27th KOTESOL International Conference.
Some competencies with cheese and wine.
Yes, me too. Excellent.
Not
So,
my working life.
yeah. No, yeah. Well, thank you.